Hey guys, in this video I'm going to teach you how to adjust your ISO. So we are moving right along. Hopefully you're learning a lot as we go, but we're going to learn how to adjust the sensitivity of our sensor to light by adjusting the ISO. Let's start with a Nikon camera. If you look at the back of it, you want to look for an ISO button. Now I have one right here, so if I hold down the ISO button, I can look on the top LCD screen and I can use the rear command dial to scroll to my lowest number. Now my lowest number is 100, and again I have some L or LO settings in my ISO. We're going to ignore those, so my lowest actual number is 100. So that is where my sensor is the least sensitive to light. So I would use this to be shooting out in bright sun or bright outdoors type weather, or shooting conditions is a better word for it. So if I hold down the ISO button again and I scroll to the highest ISO number, I can get to 6400. Now again, I have high or HI above 6400. Nikon has those, so if you have a Nikon, just ignore that. But 6400 ISO is the most sensitive to light that this sensor can be on this camera. And so this would be for shooting at night or in darker areas. And then landing somewhere in the middle, I'm going to set it to 400, which is a nice ISO speed where you're not at the darkest, not at the least sensitive and not at the most sensitive, to enable me to get the best dynamic range in my image. Okay, now let's move over. Oh, I did forget something. If you don't have an ISO button on the back of your camera, you simply hit the I button, which gets you into the info menu. You then hit the I button again, so you can now move through the menu on the bottom of the I menu, and you'll use the multi-selector dial to move over to where it says ISO. Hit OK to enter that menu. Then you can use that multi-selector dial again to move back and forth to change the ISO you want to change, and hit OK to select it. So let's move to the Canon camera. Let's look for an ISO button on the camera. On this camera, I happen to have one right here on the top. So same thing, if I hold it down, I scroll to the lowest number. Now my lowest is an A, which is auto ISO, so I don't want to put it in auto ISO. My actual lowest number is 100. So when I have this camera set to 100, the sensor is very unsensitive to light. Now let's take it to the highest number, and this camera can achieve 128,000 ISO, which makes it very sensitive to light, and so it can shoot in very dark conditions and still be able to expose the image properly. The highest the Nikon that I have can go is 6400. The highest the Canon can go is 128,000. So this sensor can become more sensitive to light than the one I have in the Nikon. So this camera would be better or be better able to get light in a very dim or low light situation than my Nikon can. Now on my ISO, I'm going to set it to 400. So I've been to the low, been to the high. I'll put it at 400 ISO. And if you don't have an ISO button on your Canon camera, you want to hit the Q button on the back, which takes you into the Q or the quick menu. When you're there, simply use the multi-selector dial to go to where it has ISO. There it is, it's up at the top. Good, and so I select it, I hit the set button to go into that menu, and then use the multi-selector dial to select any of those numbers between 100 and 128,000. Okay, so, and then hit set to lock that setting in. So if you don't have an ISO button on the outside, on a Nikon you hit the I button to go into the info menu. On a Canon you hit the Q button to go into the quick menu, and then you just adjust the settings right in there with the multi-selector dial that's found on the back of the camera. So that's how you set your ISO.